Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Growing Up Alien as we continue on our Sherlock Holmes detective like mission here to try to make sense out of what the fuck's going on. Um, well, I mean, you can look outside and see what's going on, but we're going to take kind of a historical deep dive to uncover some of the links between different original contactees and what seems to line up and make sense. So today I'm just going to briefly touch on some of the Adamski Scouts and the Menger Scouts that always struck me as they look exactly like the German UFOs. So yeah, it's I'm gonna so what I really want folks to do is I send you links and provide you with some different stuff so you don't that's how research works. So you do the someone chooses to do a little digging and to find some stuff, and then you share your links to other folks so that they can then save some time and find the stuff, read it for themselves, firsthand information, and then make their own decisions, conclusions based on the evidence provided, not use the evidence to fit a thesis, but to create a thesis after the evidence. That's how it works. I used to teach, this is what I taught for 20 years. I taught, first I taught life drawing, but then I switched into being a historian. I started teaching research for, yeah, 20 years. And anyway, yeah, it always like immediately I'm like, where did I see that ship? You know, looking at the Menger videos and some of these things, I'm just like, where did I see that before? I'm like, oh, it's Nazi. Um, so I'm gonna leave this with you. And it also leads us to question the ship that crashed in Magenta, Italy in 1933 with the Nordics on board. Was it German? Were they Germans or were they ET? Well, I don't know how we'll ever find out ultimately, but you know, you find a ship crashed with two humans in it. I mean, this is pre-DNA, so I don't know if they saved any of the bodies. So now they know DNA testing. But you know, what's the difference between a man or woman born on Era and a man or woman born on Earth? Nothing really. I mean, you'd have to do DNA to figure that out. They're little things, but you know, it's definitely raises some questions. And I'm gonna there's a William Mills Tompkins again. There's what's selected. This is selected by extraterrestrials. This is volume 3. And this is fantastic because we have both Jeff Rentz interviewing Bill here in the book and Frank Chili. And Frank. But anyway, the section here, the interview, is where Jeff is asking Bill about the spy information that came in to the United States from the German think tanks, where these American spies came back. And this is, you know, remember, this is not now, right? This is World War II. So these people you didn't even have a television. People had a radio. But the idea of technology was completely out of. So these spies came back being like, I don't know what I saw, right? How would they even explain this? So they talked about these things. And so Jeff, okay, he says to Bill, so now we have a string of photographs on a page on the site I mentioned. Your desktop group won't necessarily match with that. So he's going to bring the pictures up. Here is one. This is one of the early German attempts at these massless propulsion craft. So this has got a cockpit. It looks like a pancake. It has an iron cross left and an iron cross right. It's a vertical stabilizer and a horizontal one. It looks like a horizontal tail as well. It looks something that was an early prototype of a disc type craft, but it was designed to fly aerodynamically like an airplane. So here is that. I didn't, you know, I can just show you like this. I mean, just as good as if I had pulled it up. So there it is. So Bill says only that it was probably something that had been developed early, certainly not anything like the ones that they were given or the ones that they were putting in production. So here is another one of the craft on this side. It looks like a dinner plate. What strikes me as strange when we get into the other, and I'll talk about that when we get there, is the craft don't look ET. But anyway, Jeff, okay. So it looks like an upside down dinner plate. So Bill says, I believe the one you're talking about, if you look at the center of that photograph, you're looking at a cockpit like of an airplane. And it's sort of streamlined. So here we go on to some more. Here's one. I got a video of these things flying. Here's one here flying. You see that craft flying with the car underneath it? So this one, so this disc is fully visible. There's a hill behind it. Yep. Do you remember this picture? Bill, yes, I do. Jeff, there's a black and white car photographed with a disc. That's what I'm saying here. They're looking at it. Whoever's in the car is watching the disc hovering. All right. So Bill, I have to say, I don't recognize the photo. I understood from talking to Frank Chili. It was one of those photos that I was given a copy of, but I'm not familiar with that vehicle. So Jeff, okay, well, whoever's in it is apparently parked there, and who took the photograph was standing behind it. So here's another one with 4 German officers in front of a similar craft. So I'll let you hear this, that one. Actually, it comes up, you can see it really well. So why go through all the trouble of fighting with Canva to put these on? Take a picture of a picture and put it on. So there's our third picture. We'll go to picture number 4. So, the next picture shows 4 German officers. There it is, standing and talking, and in between the 2 of the legs that is the craft. So Bill says, yeah, that looks very much like a real photograph, and the essential would have been the German officers there, and the vehicle then would be one of their production versions of the UFOs. And you know Werner von Braun, NASA. Right. Here's another one where a German military person, there's also a car behind it, touching the edge of that craft here. Okay. This is the picture that was in my mind when I was seeing these other images, and there's several like this. I don't know if I have any more. There's dirigible. All right. Okay. So you can see that. This is a famous picture actually of a German UFO. Let's see. So Bill says with this one, yes, it's one of the large ones. You're right, and it's not a fake photograph. Yeah, I can't imagine how you would do that. So the thing with Adamski is his stuff's been analyzed and it's not fakes. There were fakes made by the bad guys, and I think the bad guys were heavily involved, like Desmond Leslie, with Adamski to try to discredit. So anyway, yeah. So, okay, so, yeah, so Bill says, yes, a large one. This one is very close to what really took place. And you'll notice, too, that there were gun mounts on the upper left side. That's 4 of these at the craft. You can see some of them pointing it down to 30 degrees. Underneath the craft, yeah, pieces underneath the craft. And you can see the guns underneath the craft. Bill, yeah. There's 4 of those mounts. Well, we'll see it in other pictures. It's a spectacular weapon. What's interesting about this one is that this was in production, but they were having trouble both training and operation. And so the vehicle that finished all of its production requirements, all of the test programs that class, and they were building them in production, but they didn't have the training for the people to operate them by the end of the war. So, I mean, yeah, you can imagine. That's it. So Jeff friends. Now that's a remarkable story. Did this craft come technologically from the telepathy that 13-year-old girl began receiving, or was this one of the gifted craft to the Germans? So this, yeah, the Germans were being given, as Stefano Breccia mentioned, from the CTRs, as well as the Altair and the famous Aldebaran groups, or Nordics, regressive Nordics, technology to build these things. So yeah, Bill says this is a gifted craft. The girl that was receiving the telepathic communication from the Nordics, the girls' first ones, they built 2 of them, and those ended up actually at Area 51 here on the West Coast, but they were just their prototypes. And so they were just building small ones to make everything work, which would be a normal thing for them to do. So Jeff, wonderful museum that would make. Tour that with all these crafts out there. Now, do any of these large craft with the 40mm cannons, and there are 2 on top as well, did any of those go up and engage bomber formations? Bill, However, they were very substantial weapon systems and they did move extremely fast. And remember, essentially, the crew inside felt no gravitation. There's no gravity and massless propulsion, right? Creating its own gravity. So the vehicle can make 90-degree turns or 180s and nobody inside feels anything. So you can imagine a B-51 or B-29 pilot firing his machine guns at this thing, and then less than a second later, it's to the side of where the machine guns are firing and shooting at him. And one of the problems they had with this group of these large ones was that their crew didn't see the aircraft. But when they saw the aircraft coming at them, there was no problem. You could not shoot it down. Okay, so some more pictures here. So Frank actually, let me see, where's George? Oh, George, Dr. Wood was there too. All right, so Jeff says, all right. Well, very interesting. All right, Frank Chili, your thoughts up to this point. Frank says, it's been a remarkable presentation. I'd like to ask Bill if any of the operatives ever had the ability or the capability of being able to travel in them. So Bill, to my knowledge, none of them actually flew in the vehicles. They got into them and climbed into them. And one of them even tried to start one. He thought he knew what the operation was to turn it on. Jeff, wow. Bill, yeah. Jeff, was he going to try and fly it out there? Bill, well, if he could, he would fly it out. But in fact, quite a number of them were pilots, maybe lieutenant operatives. So I never heard any of them say they just flew them. So Jeff, okay, very good. Now, Frank says, Jeff, I would also. Jeff, yeah, Frank, go ahead. Frank, again, I'd like to ask Bill if the operatives were able to learn the capabilities of these discs for speed and for building them. Bill says, they brought operating manuals, okay, which were tremendously helpful. And they even had maintenance documents and they had documents on laser weapons, which of course would then replace the 20 millimeter and 40 millimeter guns that they had. So Jeff says they had lasers and Bill, yeah, they had laser weapons. Jeff, beam weapons? Bill, yeah, beam weapons. Jeff, wow, okay. Yeah. Yeah. So here's a craft underneath a dirigible Nazi. And then the last is an interior, which is, oh, here is Bill. Bill's explained, actually, I should, yeah, okay, three wheels, but okay. He's talking about the material. Says now one of the others that looks very similar to this but smaller actually was built out of chrome alloy steel, and that of course weighed unbelievable compared to all these others. And they are very heavy. Yeah, I never thought it was built eggs. What did he say? All right, yeah, he's saying we haven't gotten to the triangle and cigar ones. Okay. All right, so Jeff, right. We have no pictures of those, by the way. The triangle cigar for this anyway. But this one with the number 15 on the top, round turret formation above the disc shape, cannons. Each strut has three wheels. Now, if this was an ET gift craft, why would the ETs make a craft with rubber wheels for landing? Was that something they did for the Germans? Bill, the Germans did that. Jeff, oh, the Germans did that. Bill, yes. And there were many things that one of the managers or one of the engineers said, well, why don't we use so and so because we can get that? And so even in the interior of the vehicles, things were not as the vehicles were given to them because remember, they didn't just have the vehicles given to them. They had all kinds of information. So the Germans then were running and trying to build similar type. And so there was not so much of a research program as it would be a production company like an aerospace, where it's think tank area. So Jeff says, yeah. So they were replicating as much as inventing. Bill's, yes. All right. So here's another craft, another of the German crafts. And it's not an ET craft because you can see that it's built. I mean, it's metal. You know, you can see how it's built. And ET craft aren't built. This is the inside. And for those of you who've been abducted by the military, and this goes to the one that was out in the western part of Massachusetts here. The guy remembers, just like I remember, what it looks like inside, and it's not an ET craft. This is the interior or alleged interior of a German UFO. It's all plates. It's all riveted together. That's not something you see on ET craft. So for folks, if you remember being abducted and you saw something similar, I mean, mine was much bigger, obviously, because this is prototype stuff way back in the World War II era. I was abducted not in the World War, I was abducted much later. You're going to see advancements. But as they're talking about here, the United States was reverse engineering German UFOs. So for folks, again, reflect back if you've been abducted or been on a ship. Did it look like it was built like that? Did it look like this, like rivets and pieces, metal? Or did it look like your cell phone? Did it look just like all glass, like not glass, but like formless, no seams, and then that was ET. So for most of us, we were in military craft. So this was interesting. Here is some German craft and airplane. There's a craft flying with the airplane. There's the airplanes and the crafts there. Yeah. Um, okay, so I didn't do it this one, but I'm going to do a separate video where John Walsons has using his special infrared type telescope video setup. He's able to capture stuff much better than NASA. And he's captured images of the craft designed by Bill Tompkins. And I told him, like, dude, like, is that Solar Warden? And he's like, yeah. And if you look at what he's captured in his video with the diagrams and designs by Bill Tompkins, there you go. So anyway, science and research. Not, that's my thing. Anyway, this is Breccia. This is the 50 years of Amicizia. He's showing this craft, which is one of the Menger ones. And I don't know, these look a hell of a lot similar to you can almost see the little torsion bubbles underneath, but the propulsion little things that they use to change direction. But these craft they always look very German to me, as opposed to what Meier, with Semjase's craft, doesn't look anything like that. And curious stuff. So here's some. I did a whole thing on this with Evan, but there's little bubbles and stuff underneath there, and we're not getting into how they fly. We did the whole video on how they fly. Now, having said that, there's been talk that Adamski was in contact with Germans. I don't think so. I think he was in contact with Desmond Leslie. People might remember Leslie Castle in Ireland, if you've ever been to Ireland. Adamski had attracted a lot of attention, and he was taken around the world and wined and dined and honeypotted, which a lot of people are being done, now that people enjoy that honeypotting. Be careful of that. But they infiltrated Adamski. So Adamski stuff is real. I'm again, the day that Adamski first met the blonde man, the Nordic looking guy, Adamski called him Orthon. We call him Orthon, but it's not his name. Just like with Albert Coe and Zret, they never gave a name. But this guy landed in a craft that looked very much like a German craft. However, there were 6 people there that day when Adamski met this guy. I don't think the Germans would have landed it with so many people. And the guy that walks out had some unusual characteristics. So unless Adamski was lying, would he know to lie? That's another thing. That I don't think so. He describes the way his skin is very smooth and his hair was very, very lush and wonderful. And the way he looked is, to me, screams, a humanoid not born here. So didn't scream German guy. So you could definitely replace any Nordic looking human for a Nordic, and who would know? You get a 6-foot tall German, blonde haired, blue eyed. Most people would never know. The difference is the skin. So the fact that Adamski would notice that and even realize it, I don't know. I mean, that kind of is curious to me. But I'm going to pull up some video here of Adamski. Actually, first I'm going to pull up the German one. Okay, let's see if it actually, let's see if it does what I want. Nope, it did Adamski. Okay. No, yeah. We'll do Adamski first. Even though my computer does what it wants and I'm not going to argue with it because it's going to shaft me if I do. So here's this video, and it says, 8 millimeter rotifer film footage was proven real by experts such as William Sherwood, a pioneering and optical physicist. Okay. All right, here we go. Oh no, they did showing me. They did. Oh yes, they did. It did what I wanted. It's showing me derp. All right. George Adamski, yeah. This is from Adamski. Now, if you remember, the Menger craft are very similar, and the Nazi craft are very similar. And it's curious because Bob Renaud's contact said there were no Venusians. Okay. I don't know what again. So I'll just stop it. So what they're talking about with the radiation effect. So the ship looks distorted, and that's what you want to see because the camera can't kind of tell between the skin on the craft and the ionization field, the radiation coming off of the craft gives you this weird like eh, not sharp because the camera's not taking that. So that's legit. I mean, that's and the question with this is those craft don't look ET built to me, but I can be wrong because the W-56s were telling Stefano Breccia that, and again, each race and being builds their craft differently. So the W-56s were telling Breccia that they were building theirs out of iron, and they would use an electromagnetic field to hold the ship together. So there's no riveting or anything like that. So is this craft an Adamski that is a legit image of a massless type style propulsion, vehicle, anti-gravity vehicle? Is it German? Is it reverse engineered American military think tank? Or is it ET? So I don't know, but to me, now I suspect, I'm just gonna throw this together. I suspect Adamski was both in contact with ET from his descriptions. Were they benevolent or were they regressive? And footage, some of this, I don't know. To me, some of these craft look man-made. They look German. So I don't know. And again, Rob, as Bob Renaud's contact said, there were no Venusians, Bob. They weren't from Venus. So similar to W-56s, what you saw wouldn't be one race, and that's why they always said, well, we can't say where we're from because we're from all different places. And some of us are from here, we were born here. Yeah, I leave that up to you, and I think some more research needs to be done on that. And again, it's not saying that Adamski or Menger were liars or wrong, not at all. The question is whether they were in contact with many different. So the ET, and that's just like today, you don't know who you're talking to unless you really know your contact, which many of you do. But a lot of these people don't really know who they're talking to, and they're probably talking, and they are talking to ET. But are they the ones that are holding our best interests, or are they the ones that are trying to, mess us up? I don't know, So the next video is the German. Let's hope that doesn't. Why is it not pulling up? Maybe, okay, it's pulling the same one up. Isn't that strange? Let me see if I can. Let me delete that. Here's one way to do this. Delete that. Now, hopefully, this will pull up. All right, as always, extra steps. This is the Nazi Germany UFO, the Haunebu, whatever you want to call them, test flight. They had different craft. So the Nazis had flying saucers in 1939. Sure did. They may have had them before. If 1933 in Magenta, Italy was not ET, but was German, that needs to be looked into for sure. So let's see what this says. Let's see. So yeah, the WWII files, and if you can pull this up, I'm not going to play it because I'm sure there's an ad coming for us. An Operation Highjump. So by that,
this is the garden hose nozzle my team spent 3 years building because every pressure washer on the market kept letting people down. Every pressure washer has the same.
Operation Highjump commenced in August 1946. It was the largest, most heavily armed naval task force ever sent to Antarctica. Leading the mission was Admiral Richard E. Byrd, one of the most famous naval officers in history. The official purpose for the expedition was scientific research and military training. But that was just a cover story. Operation Highjump had other goals. One was to extend American sovereignty over Antarctica, something that was denied many times by the US government. Another was to locate and destroy a secret Nazi base and capture the Nazis' new secret weapon, the flying saucer.
So
UFOs were seen all over the air.
good pictures. Here we go. There's let's see. You can, I'll put the link if folks want to see that. So here is that's a great close-up of the picture in the book. And you can see that they were talking about it, as Bill was saying, the guns on the top and the guns on the bottom. So the CTRs were working with the Nazis. And you can see too that some of those images, again, it's a different model than this ship, but when they were showing it flying, you start to get that warped image, but that's the propulsion system. So what is anything else? Use here, but you, like I say, like y'all can go drawing of I'll put this link in the bottom, so I'm just gonna get rid of this right now. Turn that off. All right. Yeah, that's pretty much putting different pieces together from different historical documents and firsthand accounts and who knows what and who knows who. Like I said, Frank Chili talked to Commander Bethune, who flew Admiral Byrd, and not only did he see it, but he's like, yeah, that he remembers reporting back to the military headquarters that the Nazis flotillas were going down to Antarctica, going down South America, and they just said, let them go, because there's nothing they could do. Bethune was surprised. He's like, shouldn't we, like, stop them or blow them up or whatever? They're like, nah, because, and then Frank was giving intel again with the UFO flyover, which you can see in quite a bit of footage on YouTube and yada yada, right? On the flyover of the UFOs for the Capitol building. The report on that is it's ET. It's not, it's German. So and then, of course, we were able to reverse engineer it, I suspect, according to what Bill was showing there, not only the German craft, but probably some of the ET craft. And later on, we were able to do it ourselves. But now you're going to see all kinds of, fantastic, exotic propulsion vehicles that they're going to try to say is ET. This is kind of what I suspect. This is what they did. I mean, I think, I'm making this up, but the cat's kind of halfway out of the bag now. People are seeing a lot of stuff. They've been seeing a lot of stuff. You have people coming forward. You're a crazy nut argument for contactees, abductees, has no longer really holds water in most of the world. So they have to figure out something else to keep the lid on this shit. And what can they do? And again, society's crumbling. I suspect we might be in a type of siege warfare at this point where they could just simply let society collapse and then you can rebuild over a planet that's, devastated at this point. I don't see, unless something changes and there's some assistance or something actually happens where there's a coup, an Earth coup where the benevolence slide power away from the collapsing ICC cabal here. I feel like the ICC, the syndicate, doesn't think Earth is worth it anymore. They have many other planets, so they don't, like, why would they continue holding on here? That's kind of my guess. But then you have complications with this planet. Significant complications with I'm just going to say it, an unevolved humanoid race. So what they could do is simply just let that race go extinct. And it's doing that now. You'll have stragglers and survivors, but those may be, again, you have a survival of the fittest. So the humanoids that survive, there'd be fewer of them, so it wouldn't be so much of an issue, as opposed to, like, what are they, there's billions of people on this planet. There's a lot of people that you're gonna have to like, babysit. So, um, very few, in my opinion, of the race on this planet is ready to comprehend the stuff we talk about, which is normal for us. Quite a bit will, but you're gonna still have I think a large percentage that aren't gonna be even remotely capable of, again, it's like trying to teach a cow how to fly an airplane. They won't be able to. It's going to be, that ontological shock thing. But anyway, I don't know. Whatever they have planned, they have planned. In the meantime, we're definitely fucked. So you can see society, and an economic situation is crumbling. So, um, like I said, time will tell. For those of us who are here, experiencing and living this, I give condolences to those folks who are really feeling the weight of the current cabal plan, which is to strangle everybody as far as standard of living and economic process is concerned. That's what they're going to use. And that's not what they're going to use, what they're using. What they've been using, and a lot of economists have been talking about this for quite some time, and no one ever listens to academics anyway. So you can see it. This, in fact, this was talked about in the mid to late 18th century, where society was beginning to collapse then. And it's definitely well on its way now. So we're going to lose, I think, a lot of folks to the burden of survival. This is part of what the cabal uses as a brilliant technique. People are going to start, I don't know what it's going to look like as people start to lose their homes. Of course, you have corporations like BlackRock buying up large amounts of property. You might see that continue. You have farmland being brought up. You have people see, there's still, as my father always said, people have too much. There's still too many. We're not quite there at the collapse yet, because there's still too many people that have too much. So they're gonna, and this goes, if you read Jared Diamond, he analyzes the society's kind of an interesting combination of anthropology and archaeology with history. And there's a book called Collapse. I recommend that. Jared Diamond Collapse. And I used to teach it in my history class. But looking back at past civilizations, you always have these elite strata. And this is common in regressive type civilizations. So once the humans on this planet stop looking at themselves as Earth people and start seeing themselves as another ET civilization, they will then begin to understand what's actually going on here in a realistic framework. You've had on many planets hierarchical bases. Whenever you see a hierarchical base, that's an unsustainable cultural political structure. The hell got rid of it a long time ago. We used to have a royalty, and they got rid of that because it doesn't make any sense to have that kind of shit. People who believe in royalty and politicians, you're an idiot. It is not a sustainable method. Every civilization that has this has collapsed or is not in great standing. So these societies collapse. But your leaders, your religious leaders, whatever your societies run on in this false framework, your elites, the hegemony, are the last to fall. And you're seeing that here. They're first to fall. In human trafficking, they're called disposable people. And there's a lot of disposable people. The disposable people, again, that the traffickers collect, are the ones that are the first to fall. They have the most to lose. And you're going to see massive collapse of that strata. That strata is increasing because pressure is being placed on the floaters, I call them. It's like if you look at a ship sinking, there's people who are on the lifeboats, right? So you have that. I'm not gonna quite call it a middle class, but something like that. In society, they still have food and they still have shelter, but they're hanging on. So you have the lower orders, which forget them, the disposable people. They're the first to go, and nobody gives a shit about them anyway. Nobody ever does. But they've set it up now where where the mass of the population, this is the structure, this is the group that society lives on, basically. So they got holes in their raft. And they're not really able to, they certainly don't have the funds and the ability to build up the disposable. They're done. Because they're barely hanging on themselves. So they're not really able economically to sustain their own class. To put it in sort of a realistic terms, you've got some friends, you're working, you have an apartment or you have a mortgage, and you don't have a whole lot of savings. So you're basically living a little bit better than paycheck to paycheck. You got some shit put away, but you're living very well paycheck to paycheck. But you have some friends or family that aren't. They're falling on hard terms, whether it's through illness or through loss of a job and not being able to get another job. And people fall not because they're bad people, not because they're lazy. And I think you all understand that. I don't think we have people here who are, that, lost or pulled away from reality. It's very easy if you're living paycheck to paycheck, even with savings, to fall very quickly through some kind of catastrophic situation, loss of a job or health issue, whatever. So you have friends, as I said, or family who are in that situation right now, and they're losing their apartment or they're losing their house, and they're not able to maintain themselves because they can't find work, or they can't find work that actually pays. That's not a thing. And that's all on purpose. But you don't have the financial extra to help them. That's what they want. So that's where we are. You need buffering. So you need people within the same strata that have resources, disposable resources, extra resources that they can liquidate, pull on to assist others in the community. That's not there anymore because everybody only has what they have for themselves. So they want that. That's all on purpose. You don't have the family framework for support system that you tended to have at a higher level back in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. You have a very fractured family structure, divorce, struggle, where the children don't live at home, or where they don't want to live at home because home is a very dysfunctional place. So they slowly fractured. That came in like 80s. This is the Gen X thing where the divorce rate through the roof. So you don't have a family structure. So I grew up in an antiquated family structure because my parents were older. So we had 3 generations in the same house. A house that was purchased by my immigrant, non-English speaking grandfather with factory worker money that we maintain for actually 4 generations. My great grandfather lived in this house. So you don't have that, and you don't have a home anymore. People don't have that. I guess if anything, this is what they try to pull from beneath everybody, is the ability to own a home. Because if you have a fully paid off owned home, you're in good standing because you have a fairly large, you're sitting on money. Let's put it that way. You have some kind of investment. You have leverage. You have your house. But folks, since the 90s on, and again with the divorce systems and all that, you had a massive fracturing. And it's kind of stupid in a way because people operate off emotions, which fascinates a lot of ETs. They operate off emotions more than they operate off of logistics. So it's stupid to divorce when you haven't paid off your house. It would make more sense to stay, but I get it because Terrans are so fucked up. And it's like you don't want to live with, a nut. So I totally get that. And that's actually, again, that's also part of the system. So make people react, become very emotional, then if you look at the new age shit, They moving again, they're pushing, pushing, pushing. Don't reason, don't use logic, become reactive. Follow a cult. Hopium is a drug. So you have so many people now in our society that are addicted not only to drugs or to pills or to whatever, medications, but they're also addicted to religions and these philosophies, and they're all the same. So you have people addicted to this hopium that we call in the New Age, and people who don't think they're in the New Age, but they're in the New Age because they're living off of fantasy world. My grandfather didn't manifest the house. My grandfather struggled. He never knew anything about manifestation. He never knew anything about ETs, or they never did shit like that. Like, he worked his ass off in a wire mill that busted his back, fucked him up, and he was able to get. And at the same time, there was a depression, so houses were going cheap. You'll probably see that happen again. So it might be worthwhile to hold off a little bit, just to kind of see what happens in the next couple of years, before purchasing property. If you have the means to purchase by all means. But, yeah, I don't know. We'll see where that goes. But again, you have a civilization that was on purpose living off of a heightened emotional reactive status. This is something that I know a lot of you probably won't understand if you are like me and the consciousness is not from this planet. I never understood that. I don't understand that. It's very odd to me, and it's very uncomfortable for me. So why I like to hang around animals, because hanging around Terrans makes me nervous, because they emit a certain they radiate a type of very nervous, anxious, stressed energy that I have a hard time processing. And I absorb it, and I've tried not to, and I don't know how not to. Anyway, water under the bridge. But they did it on purpose, because it's very, very emotional, very again, reactive is the word, right? Because if you get into, let's just say, in what happened economically for a lot of people in the 80s and 90s and post, you have people that had children and then for whatever reason get divorced. So their economic system is in the crapper. And that's stupid, because now your kids are fucked up. And it's like everybody's on the first page. That's a bad. So from an extraterrestrial perspective, from someone coming in from another, like, wouldn't it make sense? Because our focus is on the family. Many benevolent ETs, the entire focus is on the family. So it doesn't make any sense to us that if you have children, that should be your entire focus. That would be your entire focus. How can you get divorced? Because your entire focus is on maintaining a structure to raise your children in. Everything is about, it's very sacrificial. It's all about the children. So I don't understand that. Because like I said, your entire focus should be on the children, the children, the children. Like, my focus is on the animals, the animals, the animals. Everything I do is for them. Because we're very family. But what they did here on this planet was fracture that. Well, the humans fractured it. I mean, they planted the seed, but then the race itself fractured concepts of family. And being in a family isn't always easy, that's for sure. But you would have the bigger picture in mind, which is the same sustainability of your family. So you all stick together. But that's not what they did here, because that's how they gain power and that's how they gain control. And now we're seeing the fruits. But ultimately, ironically, the fruits of what they had done to the race here is going to collapse the entire system, including their system. So unless we get assistance, it's going to be ugly. But it is what it is, I guess. Another, and it's not the first time. This is what I think people refer to as the reset. Yep. We shall see. Like I said, we're here to kind of soften the blow. That's why we're here. And to try to get people to get this shit, so that they don't run around like a bunch of chattel when this shit, if stuff starts to, if you're, they got to get ready. They got to start understanding the technology. That's number one. They got to start understanding the technology. They got to start understanding real physics. And the only way we can do that is by taking down the gatekeepers. Because if there's enough of us doing this stuff, they can't kill us all. And I'm not requesting people should martyr. That's ridiculous. If you want, I don't give a shit. I'm ready. I tell them all the time. But if we get enough people to begin pressing and doing, and it's just that ET tech is not, I'm not talking about building a UFO in your backyard. That's complicated. But some folks could sure do that. But the ether energy, that's stuff you can do. So it's time to start doing that. And they don't usually bother you. And if there's enough of us doing it, what are they going to do? But they don't usually bother you as long as you don't try to bring it forward. So Amy Eskridge, I believe, this is what got her in trouble, was when she began to try to sell the concept. So if you create a free energy device, you can use it in your house. Your neighbors can buy it off you. Your family can use it. No one's going to give a shit. That's actually happening now. People are using, it's not a mystery, free energy devices. The problem is, if you were to go public with it, to try to sell it to a manufacturer, to try to sell it to a corporation, that's what George Fiedler did. George Fiedler, he didn't understand. And this is why aren't the ETs feeding us tech? Because it can't get anywhere. So you have benevolent ETs that have tried back in the 80s, 70s to feed tech, like George Fiedler and Solara Industries, where he had this pest control device that worked off of frequency. It was an extraterrestrial design. What he did as a mistake was market it. So once you start to market it, that's when you're going to be taken down. As long as you don't market it. So I think there was like 11, you all know the people back in the day who had developed a free energy device and then were trying to go public with it. The minute they were going public with it, to shop it around to different corporations and businesses to begin the full-scale manufacturing of these over Unity devices, that's when they get taken out. And now, what Dave Rossi noticed was that when you try to market this shit, a lot of the companies won't touch it. Well, yeah, not because they'll say, oh, that won't work. That's not real. That's what they'll say. But they're like, oh shit, I ain't touching that. They know. They're like, fuck, I touched this. I'm shit. But that's really where they draw the line. So we'll see. We'll see. Like I said, time will tell. Look outside your window. What you see outside your window is reality. If you got ET walking around, you got spaceships outside your house, great. If you don't, then, and like I say, I suspect, and I could be wrong, and I hope I'm wrong, that disclosure is going to be nothing but a smoke and mirrors, where they're going to tell you that, yeah, there's life out on other planets. The president comes out, yeah, there's life on other planets, and that's it. And they're going to try to push a lot of that tech as ET tech. So because they're flying this shit, and I think they want to fly more of it. So people are seeing it. So what are they going to do, right? So they're tired, I think. The cabal is tired of always doing this stuff under the table. And they realize that their explanations that you're just crazy and you don't know what you're seeing isn't really working anymore. So they're like, oh crap, what can we do? Oh, here's a great idea. Just tell the assholes it's aliens. And that'll work. So now they can fly around all they want, wee, right? And they're, oh, those are the aliens, those are the ETs. Oh, I can feel the love off the ship. Oh, can you feel the love off the ship? Yeah, it's the Aerospace Corporation. It's a bunch of assholes and then anyway. But I think that's what they're going to try to do. So for those folks who think that the med beds are rolling out, and all that shit, I think you're going to be waiting for that. But we can design those ourselves. In fact, we have designed those ourselves. So it's time for us to start making that shit. Make it, because we can do it. And Sal Pais always like, you can. That's why I love Sal compared to other people, is that he calls us his peers, and you can do it. And we need to stick together. That's key. That stick together, realize what they're doing, stop drinking the hopium, because think about that, right? Oh, the disclosure's coming out, the government's going to come out, the government's going to save us. That's hopium. That's actually you doing the opposite of what you're proselytizing to the rest of us, that you're shoving down our throats with all your new age shit. I'm close to like removing people who walk into my space and shove their dicks of hopium in my space. Like, don't do that. You're free to worship whatever you want. If you want to worship the government because they're going to come to save you with aliens, you do you. But you're giving away your power. And the one thing you're actually talking about which is about not giving away your power, is exactly what you're doing, because the purpose of the hopium is for you to do nothing. Because if you believe that their benevolent ETs are going to come at some point and help you, if you believe that you can just raise your vibration and float out of this dimension, which I don't know why you haven't, if you can do that, do it. Why are you telling me that you're raising your vibration to get out of here? Do it. Bye. Has anyone done it? I don't know. I mean, I'd like, if you have and you keep the step forward. Again, that's believing in fantasy. Oh, well, there's this woman, Elena Denon, who told you that there are races that vibrated out of there. Like, okay. I don't know of any. So, there's shit going on in this universe that everyone's feeling, whether you're 5D or 60, you're still getting your ass handed to you. As long as you're in a physical body, you're going to get your ass handed to you. So hopium is the new opium, and people are becoming addicted to it because it's nice. It does the same thing that a drug does. Makes you happy, makes you feel like nothing bad is really going to happen. I don't have to do anything. I can just sit here and, all the happy will flow my way, which is what a drug does. If your life is in shit, right? And you take some drugs, oh, you're going to get some relief. That's what they're doing. They're drugging you, and then they feed off the loosh. So there's a split within, I guess, our community between the people who are taking the hopium and just sitting there drugged versus the rest who are going to say, we're going to start build this shit. We're going to get together. We're going to risk our lives. We're going to fucking build this shit. So there you go. Anyway, that's my opinion. You can, like I said, I don't tell people what to do, because ultimately we're all going to be on our own, and you're going to have to choose for yourself what you're going to do. So anyway, it is what it is. So cool beans, as Frank Chili always says, we will see you upstairs.